Let's talk about the critical path method. So critical path is the path that has zero float. So what is float? Float is any task within a schedule where if that task gets delayed, it will affect the entire project schedule. So within a precedence diagram, that is easily calculated using a set of formulas. So the tasks within that have a zero float are all of that tasks that are within the critical path. So when you're looking at a project schedule, and I'm a very visual person, I don't really like precedence diagram as much as I like the Gantt charts, right? So you have task A. Task B and task C are dependent on task A. So what that means is if task A takes 4 days, that just pushed out the project schedule. So we know that task A is on that critical path. And now we have task B and task C. So both of those have a dependency where task D is dependent on B and task E is dependent on C. So you have this dependent on this and then this dependent with this, right? But both D and E feed into task F. So if you look closely, task F starts right when task E ends, which starts right when task C ends. So you know that just by easily looking at this, that this is the critical path, because if task E takes 4 days instead of 3, that's going to push task F out. And if task C takes 10 days instead of 9, that'll push out task E, which will then push out task F. So that's the critical path just by looking at it really quickly. However, task B and task D have some flow, which is this area right here before it pushes out task F. So if task B ends up taking 9 days, that just pushed out task D right there, so you still have 1 day of float. But then let's just say task D took 4 days. So now the critical path becomes task A, B, D, and F, because that essentially delayed the project schedule, and that it becomes the critical path. So that's how to calculate critical path and just identify it within a Gantt chart really quickly.